yearning of the soul. Right? And the way to develop that yearning is to recite this mantra. Now, this mantra is one of the 7 mantras of the Gayatri prayer. Okay, and when someone has second initiation, they receive the Gayatri mantra to repeat every day, at least 3 times a day. So I repeat it also 3 times a day. So this is called the Kama Bija mantra, the seed of transcendental love and desire for Krishna. So Saraswati tells Brahma, practice this spiritual association with Krishna by means of this mantra. Then all your desires will be fulfilled. Okay. So now, this is before the material nature becomes active. In other words, first thing we said that you have to understand in the Bhagavatam explanation of creation is that material nature is eternal. It doesn't have to be created. It's always existed. Just like the spiritual nature always existed. Anything that comes from Krishna is eternal. We also come from Krishna. We're also eternal. Right? But the material nature is the inferior spiritual energy of Krishna called Apara Prakriti. And what is the Apara Prakriti? It is, why is it called inferior spiritual energy or nature? Because sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not manifest. Whereas the superior spiritual nature, called Para Prakriti, is always manifest. That's the difference between those two Prakritis. Prakriti means whatever is controlled by the Lord. Right? So, this material nature before the manifest so-called creation is inert. It's not moving. The atoms are at perfect stillness. They don't interact. So now we're going to see how the whole thing is put into action. See, the material scientists, they don't accept the existence of Krishna or the spiritual world. They just say matter is itself the cause of itself. Right? In other words, matter produces its own energy and makes itself move. Now, this is not true. But they avoid any mention of Krishna and the spiritual world. But now we're hearing what actually is before material creation and how it's put into action, before material nature manifests. Okay. Now, Brahma receives this mantra. It's called the Kama Bija mantra. Kim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. And by saying this mantra, your desire to be with Krishna and associate with Krishna increases. And as it increases, then your devotional service to Krishna begins. And through devotional service, then you gradually develop love of Krishna. So then in the Brahma Samhita it says now, in verse 26, he says, Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practice the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Svetadvip, for a long time. So what is it talking about? Practice the cultural acts for Krishna. Well, cultural acts. Culture means how you do things, how you speak, how you think, how you see things, how you eat, how you do anything, but all according to a certain culture, a certain way. So that is everything we learn ourselves, right? We bow down when we see the deity. We bring gifts for the deity. We do services for the deity. We chant the holy name of the Lord. We dance for the Lord. So these are the cultural acts for Krishna. So if we go back to Godhead, we will do the same things, but without any material desire, with pure love for Krishna. Right now, we have so many material desires, but we're practicing how to become a pure devotee. Okay? So Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka. And Goloka is called Sweta Dweep also. And he did this for a long time. His meditation ran thus, or he meditated in the following way. He thought, there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. Goloka means that place where there are cows. Go means cow, and Loka means a place. So the place where Krishna lives, there are millions of cows, and they're special cows. They're called Kamadhenu, or they are cows that can give anything. They don't just give milk. They can give anything that is desirable to serve Krishna. So he's saying there's a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its whirl, there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss. Playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound, with his lotus mouth, he is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids, meaning the gopis, with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy who stays outside. So he's talking about the gopis and the Lakshmis and Yogamaya, right? The gopis, the Lakshmis, and Yogamaya. And also his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. So you have the gopis, you have the Lakshmis, you have Yogamaya, and you have Maya also. But she's not in the inner circle. She's outside. Okay. So this is Brahma's meditation. He's meditating like this. He's thinking about this. If he's meditating, he's actually seeing it in a sense. And therefore, in the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, it's a good day to, this is celebrating his appearance day, so we're reading from him now in his Brahma Samhita. He says, although the object of meditation is fully transcendental, yet, owing to her nature, which is permeated with the quality of active mundane hankering, Maya, the non-spiritual potency of Krishna, embodying the principles of mixed sattva, rajas, and tamas in the forms of Durga and other non-spiritual powers, meditated on the Supreme Lord Krishna as the object of their worship. So long as there is any trace of mundane desire in one's heart, it is the object of worship of Maya Devi, Durga. So when we have material desires in our heart, when we meditate or chant or whatever, it's with these mundane desires at the same time. You know, so therefore you'll see people that come to the temple and, you know, they'll put their hands like this and they'll say some prayer. You know, but usually that prayer is, you know, I have this problem, Krishna, you please help me with it. And I need this or I need that. And I'm coming to you. I know I believe in you. You please help me. So those type of prayers are inspired by Maya. And she's represented as Durga. So, actually, when we're saying prayers like that, we're praying to Durga. We're not actually praying to Krishna. Right. Nevertheless, the fulfillment of one's heart's desires results from the worship of the object of worship of Maya Devi, and not from the worship of Maya Devi herself. So, you're not actually worshiping Maya Devi. You're worshiping what you're desiring. So, if you want a new car, or if you want anything, a cow, you want a house, you want that's what you're actually worshiping. That's the object of Maya Devi. She supplies those things. This is in accordance with the sloka Akama Sarvakamova Moksha Kama Udaridi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajate Purusham Para. This is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which says that if you have any material desires, you should still go to Krishna. You don't have to go to the demigods. And whether you are akama, free of material desires, or whether you are moksha karma, desiring liberation, or liberated, or whether you have unlimited material desires, you should still go to Krishna. Right. So the meaning of this sloka of the Bhagavatam is that though other gods, as distinct manifestations of the Supreme Lord, meaning the demigods, are bestowers of different or sundry specific boons, in other words, different types of benedictions, yet a sensible person should worship the all-powerful Supreme Lord, Krishna, who is the giver of all good, with unalloyed devotion, without worshipping those mundane, gift-giving deities. So this mantra is basically saying, don't worship the demigods, just worship Krishna, even if you have material desires, even if you're already liberated, or even if you have no desires. Right? Accordingly, Brahma meditated upon Krishna and Goloka, the object of the worship, from a distance of Maya Devi. In other words, he's meditating on Krishna away from Maya Devi, meaning has no material desire in his mind. He just wants to know, who am I and what is my purpose? Because there's no material creation yet. There's just the unmanifest pradhana of matter. So matter has two forms. It's manifest and unmanifest. So this is the unmanifest form of matter now. The creation, the so-called material creation hasn't begun yet. But there's no such thing as material creation because the matter is eternal, right? It's an energy of Krishna. But people talk about material creation because it's something manifest. So now, Brahma is meditating on Krishna in Goloka, and he's the object of his worship. And this is a long distance away from Maya Devi. In other words, he has no material desire in his mind. True devotion is unalloyed devotional activity free from all mundane desire. The devotion of Brahma, etc., is not unmixed devotion. So now you have a double negative here. Not unmixed. What does it mean? Is it mixed or not mixed? Mixed. Yes. So a double negative cancels itself. So it says not un, the not cancels the un, and you're left with mixed. So it's basically saying the devotion of Brahma is not unmixed devotion. In other words, it's mixed devotion. Whenever you use a double negative, it's to give more emphasis to what you're really trying to say. You're trying to say that Brahma had mixed devotion, but it's adding more emphasis. So when it says Brahma had not unmixed devotion, that means adding more emphasis that he had mixed devotion. If he just said mixed devotion, you might not catch it. But you have to stop and pause. What is there's a double negative? What does that mean? Oh, the double negative cancels itself, so it's mixed devotion. But there is a stage of unmixed predilection, even in devotion for the attainment of one's selfish desires. See, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is a master of the English language. So what does this mean? He says, true devotion is unalloyed devotional activity free from mundane desire. The devotion of Brahma, etc., is not unmixed devotion, meaning it's mixed. But then he says, but there is a stage of unmixed predilection, even in devotion for the attainment of one's selfish desires. So even if you pray with mixed devotion, meaning you're praying for a material thing, and you have there is a stage of unmixed predilection, even in devotion for the attainment of one's selfish desire. Now, predilection means a tendency. This is a nice word. Let's write it down. P-R-E-D-I-L-E-C-T-I-O-N. This is one of those million-dollar words in the English language. It has very, very interesting meaning. P-R-E. P-R-E. D-I-L. P-R-E-D-I-L. E-C-T. P-R-E-D-I-L-E-C-T-I-O-N. Predilection. So, when it says that, but there's a stage of unmixed predilections, I mean, a tendency, an unmixed. In other words, it's not contaminated with a material desire. Even though you're praying with material desire, there's a little element of this natural tendency. Even when you're praying with material desires, there's still this tendency of wanting to be free of material desire. It's a very subtle point. This is psychology. And it's, you know, people say, oh, I don't believe that. You know, if someone prays with material desire, it's just with material desire. There's nothing else. Yes?
I think I know why.
Okay, go ahead.
Because they want the desire, so then they can finally get rid of it.
Are you speaking from your own experience? Or is it's just speculation?
I don't know.
No. Well, see, that's what a predilection is. It's something subtle. See, predilection means a tendency. Tendency, why? Because originally we didn't have any material desires when we were in the spiritual world. That's why. See, if you never had pure devotion, then you wouldn't have a predilection for it. But because we had this originally, even when we're completely contaminated with material desires, still there's this little slight desire in our heart to be free of this. Because that was our original state. This is real psychology now. It's not nonsense Freud and all this nonsense people. By the way, Prabhupada said that psychologists are all nonsense. And he's right. You know, so people say, oh, you should go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You know, you're having mental problems, you know. And it's probably because you're chanting too much Hare Krishna. You should go see the psychologist, you know. Prabhupada said all the psychologists and psychiatrists are people who are medical doctors and who prescribe drugs so you can calm down. And psychologists are not doctors, they're not MDs like a psychiatrist. But they are using Freud's theory that people get sick mentally because of deep frustration for sense gratification. So then they use what's called psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is they sit down and they talk and they ask you to talk. But they're not having a conversation with you. They just ask you to talk about what you remember from your past. And going as far back as possible, even into your childhood. Because anyway, I'm not going to go into it. It's all nonsense. But I went to a psychologist once when I was in college, and I thought I was going to have a talk with him. So they usually ask you to lay down on a not a bed, but some type of a couch, right? And they sit usually behind you. You can't see them, or they can sit next to you, either way. And they ask you to talk about yourself. But they don't ask you any questions, and they're not having a conversation. And after a little while, you notice you're the only one talking, and he's taking down notes. And then they want you to go back as far as possible, because Freud was saying that your frustration begins early on in life, even when you're a child, a little baby, and the more you can remember of it, the more they can find out the origin of your mental sickness. Right. Anyway, actually, we were all originally with Krishna. So even if we're completely contaminated by material desires in this material world, we still have a little tendency to want to be free of it, because that's the way we were originally. So therefore he's saying, true devotion is unalloyed devotional activity, free from all mundane desires. But then he says, the devotion of Brahma is not unmixed devotion. In other words, his devotion was mixed with material desires. Right? His meditation was. Right? But there is a stage of unmixed predilection, even in devotion for the attainment of one's selfish desires. So, see, this is where we're situated also. This is Brahma before he's self-realized, before the material creation became manifest, right? So he doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't know what his origin is, and he doesn't know what his duty is in life. He's confused. So he's resorting to meditation, and then Saraswati comes and says, look, meditate with this mantra. Krim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Namaha. Because this mantra has two purposes. One, you become attracted to Krishna, and two, you will engage in devotional service gradually, and three, and as a corollary of two, you'll develop pure love for Krishna. Right? So Brahma's listening to her, but Brahma is a jiva like us, but he is the most qualified jiva in the previous creation, right? So now in this life, in this next creation, he takes birth as Brahma, but he can't remember anything and he can't see anything because the material creation hasn't taken place yet. He's sitting on top of this flower, this lotus flower, and he went into the stem to look to see what's going on, and he couldn't see anything. So he comes back, and Saraswati tells him, look, if you want to figure yourself out, just chant this mantra. So he's chanting the mantra, but because he's a jiva, and because he was existing previously in the previous creation, he still has material desires in his heart. So he's praying to Krishna, and it's a wonderful prayer. We read it, right? He's meditating on Krishna who's sitting on a golden throne in Goloka, the land of the cows, and there's beautiful lotus flower and with 1,000 petals that he's sitting on a golden throne on top of that. And there's effulgence coming from his body, and it's causing transcendental bliss. And he's playing on his flute, his divine flute, with divine sound. And he's worshipped by the gopis and the Lakshmis, and also Maya is there, but she's outside of the world. She's not in there close to him. And also, she's in the form of the mixed modes of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, in the form of Durga. So Maya has at least 12 forms, actually 108 forms. One of them is Durga. That's one of the principal forms of Maya. But there's also Kali, there's also Bhadra, there's so many other forms. So the Durga or Maya, Mahamaya Tattva is complicated, just like Shiva Tattva is also complicated. So she has all these different forms. So here he's seeing Durga. And her non-spiritual powers. Right, what are her non-spiritual powers? She puts you into ignorance. She puts you into illusion. Right, we'll get to all that. So, Brahma has this trace of mundane desire. And although he's saying this wonderful prayer and meditating on Krishna, he still has these desires. But even with those desires, there's a predilection for pure devotion to Krishna with no material desires. Okay. All right, so now it says, then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, that is, she becomes manifest when Brahma hears the transcendental sound of Krishna's flute. So when Krishna plays his flute, it's full of knowledge. Right? And when you hear his flute, your mind becomes full of transcendental knowledge. Right? Have you ever heard Krishna's flute? I haven't either. But one day we might. So, the sound of Krishna's flute is the transcendental blissful sound, hence the archetype of all Vedas. In other words, it's the basis of the Vedas. The music coming from Krishna's flute is the basis of the Vedas. The Vedas are present in it. The Gayatri is Vedic rhythm. So a Gayatri or any mantra has a rhythm to it, has a beat to it. So for example, and those beats are different. Like you have an 18 count beat, you have an 8 count beat, you have a 24 count beat, right? So Anustup is the 8 beat, right? Like for example, Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshisyami ma suchaha. That's called Anustup. So let's count it. Sarva dharma parityaksha. That's 8 syllables, you see. Sarvadharmam parityaksha. Mam ekam saranam vrata. 8 syllables again. This is called Anustup. Every mantra has a beat to it. So the beat of Anustup is 8 mantras. The whole Ramayana is Anustup. All the verses of Ramayana are Anustup. And the story of that is very interesting. When what was his name? Huh? No. Yeah, Valmiki, when he was contemplating writing the Ramayana, he heard the idea of Anustup entered his mind. So all the verses are in Anustup. This 8 count mantra, right? So now it says, the Gayatri is Vedic rhythm. It contains a brief meditation and prayer. Kama Gayatri is the highest of all the Gayatris because the meditation and prayer contained in it are full of the perfect transcendental sportive activities, meaning he's talking about Krishna's transcendental activities, which are not found in any other Gayatri. So this Kama Gayatri contains all the ecstatic pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. So let's say, for example, there's a song that you like, a Bollywood song that you like, right? I don't know the words in Hindi, but there's so many Bollywood songs, right? So when you sing that Bollywood song that you like, it brings some image into your mind. It makes you see something, right? Okay, you know any Bollywood song? You know some Bollywood song? Go ahead, sir. Let's hear it. Go ahead. You don't have to sing it. Just say the words. Go ahead. Okay, what does that mean?
So, the singer is remembering the country.
What? The singer is remembering his country.
Okay. He's far away from the country.
He's far away. So he's remembering it like he's feeling nostalgia. He's away from his country, right? Say that again? So pyare is, he loves it, right? Yeah. It's a patriotic, right. See, now, that information is in the beat. That information is in the words, right? As soon as you say that, people say, oh yeah, I'm living in San Francisco, it's so far away from my village. And I love my village. I don't like San Francisco. It's full of all these nonsense people. But I love my village. You understand what happens? It's in the words. It's in the beat also. This is a mantra. See. Of course, the Bollywood song is not a mantra, but it gives you an idea of what a mantra is. So the whole Krishna's pastimes is in the Kama Gayatri mantra. You see? You see, now this was not planned. Did you know I was going to ask you this? No. But see, it's very interesting how in all the Bollywood songs, they have a beat to them. They have a rhythm to them, And it might not be anustup, it might be something else. And in that rhythm, or in that beat, there is knowledge. And we just saw it right now.
It evokes emotion.
Huh?
It evokes emotion.
Yeah, it evokes emotion. Exactly right. So this Kama Bij Gayatri mantra evokes emotions, pure emotions for Krishna. The Gayatri that is attained as the sequel of the 18-lettered mantra is Kama Gayatri. So, Klim Krishnaya Gopi Janavala Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Janavala Govindaya Namo Namaha. 18. You see. This is the Kama Bij Gayatri mantra. And it says, oh boy, I lost my place. The Gayatri that is attained as the sequel of the 18-lettered mantra is Kama Gayatri, which runs thus. Okay, so there are two Kama Gayatris. Kim Kama Devaya Vidmahe Pushpabanaya Dimahi Tanno Nanga Prachodaya. So Klim Kama Devaya Vidmahe Pushpa Banaya Dimahi Tanno Nanga Prachodayat. So that has 24. Okay, and we'll come back to that. In this Gayatri, the realization of the transcendental pastimes of Sri Gopi Janavallabha after perfect meditation. So the previous one is the Kama Bij Gayatri mantra. Now, this is another Gayatri mantra. I don't think it has 18 letters. I think it has 24 letters. It says 18 here. But these are the last two lines of the 7-line Gayatri mantra that we learn on in second initiation. Okay? And it says, in this Gayatri, the realization of the transcendental pastimes of Shri Gopi Jana Vallabha, after perfect meditation and a prayer for the attainment of the transcendental God of love are indicated. In the spiritual world, there is no better mode of endeavor for securing the super excellence, rasa bedewed love. In other words, if you want to attain, that's why the Gayatri Mantra is given its second initiation once one has been purified significantly by chanting Hare Krishna according to rules and regulations, following rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Then one receives the Gayatri Mantra. And these are the last two lines of it. So if you say this Gayatri Mantra sincerely, you'll love Krishna. You'll develop pure love for Krishna and pure devotional service for Krishna, if you follow the rules and regulations and say it regularly. Okay? Now, this is the beginning of the material manifestation. All this is happening to Brahma, so that he develops pure love of Krishna, so he can put into action the material creation, you see. You see, there's a big difference between a Big Bang. There's out of nowhere, there's an explosion, and there's this big chunk of matter. That came out of nowhere also. And then it explodes. The whole process is dumb. There's no love of Krishna in it at all. See, this is all happening so that Brahma develops the determination and love of Krishna in order to put into action the material so-called manifestation. Yes?
We know that our way is like better and it's way more reasonable, but how do we explain to them that our explanation is no better than theirs?
No, it's better than theirs. Why do we say no better? If it was no better, why would we take the time to learn it? Not only better, it's far superior. Theirs is like the germ in the intestine of a mosquito, and ours is like the Virat Rupa, right? That's the difference. That's how far apart they are, right? Well, this is what you're going to learn if you keep coming to the classes. You're going to learn how to explain this in such a meaningful way that even the worst atheists will say, Krishna, I surrender to you. Your name is Krishna, right? But they'll be talking about the other Krishna. Yeah, yeah.
One question. You had mentioned Saraswati instructed Brahma.
Yeah. Saraswati's Mahavishnu's consort also. She's not. You're going to say Saraswati's married to Brahma. No, this is a transcendental Saraswati.
Because that's the reason she exists even before the material creation.
Yeah. No, you also exist before the material creation. Okay? So there's a transcendental Saraswati. No. See, this makes a lot more sense. How could someone perform or make the material nature manifest unless they have love for Krishna, because it's all his energy. You wouldn't have any access to his energy unless you're a pure lover of Krishna, you see. It's not a dumb process, a big chunk and it blows up and this creation is completely ridiculous. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. You sing it. I never sing it. Sorry. Let's. It's okay. Nobody knows except you. Okay.
How do you do the ending part? Can I help at the ending?
I don't know.
Okay.
Do you know the ending part?
Yeah, the
How
ending.
to finish this ending
The
part?
prayers and all that. Okay.
Okay.
Yashomati Nandana Brajabala Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidana Amala Harina Mamaya Vilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bura Bamsi Badana Suvasa Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godana Rakhuvala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundara Nanda Gopala Jamuna Tatakara Gopi Basanahara Rasa Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya
Rasa Rasika Kapama.
Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabala
Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara.
Bhakti Vinoda Shaya
Bhakti Vinoda Shaya.
Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Okay. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Now what? More again? Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Again? Radha Nila Madhava ki jai.
So, in this Gayatri, Kim Kamadevaya Vidmaye Pushpavanaya Dhimahi Tanno Prachodayat. The realization of the transcendental pastimes of Shri Gopijana Vallabha after perfect meditation and the prayer for the attainment of the transcendental God of love are indicated. So, you have the Kama Bija, and then you have the Kama Gayatri. And these two Gayatri mantras, Gayatri means a meter, a beat, right? They will give you attraction to Krishna, they will give you pure devotional service for Krishna, and following that, you'll have transcendental love for Krishna. Right? So in any Gayatri or any meter accompanied by transcendental words, there's information revealed. And so we had the example of one Bollywood song, just one line from it. Immediately it evokes feelings of nostalgia and sentimental feelings for your original, for India, right? Or for your village in India. Well, the Gayatri, the Kama Bija and the Kama Gayatri evoke pure love for Krishna and devotion and attraction to Krishna. So, in the spiritual world, there is no better mode of endeavor for securing the super excellent rasa bedewed love. So, there's no better endeavor than reciting this Gayatri mantra to get the transcendental nectar of love of Krishna. As soon as that Gayatri entered into the ear holes of Brahma, he became the twice-born and began to chant the Gayatri. Well, twice-born means the first birth is a seminal birth from your parents, and a second birth is spiritual birth by guru and mantra. So Brahma becomes initiated by Krishna himself by hearing his flute, and with the music of the flute, the Gayatri mantra entered into his mind. He began to recite it, and he began to see Krishna in Goloka. Whoever has received the same Gayatri in reality has attained his spiritual rebirth. So when you get second initiation, it is considered your spiritual rebirth, second birth in life. The status of a twice-born that is obtained in accordance with one's worldly nature and lineage by the fettered souls in this mundane world is far inferior to that of the twice-born who obtains admission into the transcendental world. So, you have a custom in South India amongst Sri Vaishnavas that when a boy is like 8 years old, he immediately gets Brahman initiation. But we don't do that in ISKCON. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with your family lineage. In ISKCON, one has to actually be purified through regular chanting and service and sacrifice and penance and sacrifice. And under the scrutiny of spiritual authorities, and eventually one gets first initiation, and then after more scrutiny and sacrifice and penance and chanting, one eventually gets second initiation, which is your second birth. And therefore, one obtains admission into the transcendental world because the initiation or acquisition of transcendental birth, Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai, Haribol. Because the initiation or acquisition of transcendental birth as a result of spiritual initiation is the highest of glories, inasmuch as the jiva is thereby enabled to attain to the transcendental realm. Well, in other words, you have entrance into Vaikuntha and Goloka by this second birth. Okay. So now this is all happening before the material manifestation. Yes? What are you, are you seeing yourself? Oh, okay. How do you look? Okay. This is happening before the material manifestation. Okay? So compare this to the scientists' Big Bang theory. It's like comparing iron to gold. The Big Bang theory being iron, and this explanation by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is the gold, real gold. Right? So now it says, enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri. Why does he say recollection? Because we all come from the spiritual world. Now Brahma is becoming awakened to his original state. So it's the recollection, it's not the learning. And this is very similar to what Socrates said, that knowledge is something remembered, it's not learned. Because we've had many lifetimes in different bodies, so we have so much knowledge from previous lives. The idea is to purify ourselves so we can remember. Yes?
I was going to say that Socrates said that, I was going to say what you said that Socrates said.
Yes, because I've said it many other times, and maybe you learned it also in school, I don't know, but yeah. So we should have a microphone here, right? We never have the microphone, we always forget. You have one? Oh, you have to, okay. Yes, give him the microphone, give him the microphone. What? Well, we want you to have the microphone, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't have a question.
Oh, you were just raising your hand, what, exercising your arm or what? Okay. Okay, so enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, embodying the three Vedas. So this Gayatri mantra, the Kama Bija and the Gayatri mantra, embodies the Vedas, meaning the whole purpose of the Vedas is explained in this Gayatri mantra. The whole purpose. Vedaischa sarviraham eva vedya. To know Krishna is the purpose of the Vedas. Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn. So, Brahma becomes enlightened. By chanting the Gayatri mantra, which should be chanted silently, by the way. Right. The Hare Krishna mantra you say out loud. But you can also chant it silently, because it's transcendental. It's not. Its potency is not less if you say it mentally and quiet, or if you say it out loud. But the Gayatri mantra should be said quiet or privately. Though the other mysteries in regard to the condition of the maidservant of Krishna were not revealed to him. Okay, so what other mysteries he's talking about? He's talking about Radharani. That was not revealed to him. But what was revealed to him was, well, what would have happened if all Krishna's pastimes of Radharani was revealed to him? Then he wouldn't want to create the material world. He would never even think of it. You'd just be so attracted to Radha and Krishna, you wouldn't want to do it. Because creating a material world, you have to create ignorance, you have to create forgetfulness of Krishna, you have to create all these things. He would never even think of it. So therefore, Krishna's pastimes with Radharani was held back from him. All the truths of the Vedas were revealed to him, and with the help of those essences of the Vedas, he offered this hymn to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So, when you say the Vedas, all the Vedas, there's just a little bit of information of Radharani in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? And that's the pinnacle, it's the zenith of the Vedas. So this knowledge of the Veda, of Radharani, was not actually revealed until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. It was revealed a little bit more by Jayadev Goswami in the 12th century. But when Lord Chaitanya came, then it exploded. And then he ordered the Goswamis to write extensively. So you have all these books that are not translated for us yet by the Goswamis. It has tremendous information about Radharani and Krishna's pastime. But we have, Prabhupada has given us the Krishna book, which is basically from the Srimad Bhagavatam. But the Bhagavatam itself never mentions the name of Radharani. She's only mentioned indirectly. So even if you read, we didn't have Prabhupada, and we just read the Bhagavatam translated by Joe Schmo, Dr. Joe Schmo, you wouldn't know about Radharani. You would just be talking about some gopis, right? Okay. So all the truths of the Vedas were revealed to him, and with the help of those essences of the Vedas, he offered this hymn to the Supreme Lord. Sri Krishna, Sriman Mahaprabhu, has taught this hymn to his favorite disciples, inasmuch as it fully contains all the transcendental truths regarding the Vaishnava philosophy. Readers are requested to study and try to enter into the spirit of his hymn with great care and attention as a regular daily function. What is he talking about? Brahma Samhita, which we recite every morning after Mangal Arati. So Brahma wrote the Brahma Samhita, and we only have one chapter of it. There was 100 chapters. There's only one chapter existing today. That's this 5th chapter, which is what this book is. And now he begins, Chintamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshavriti Susurabhirabi Paliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Now it's getting into a description of Krishna and the spiritual world. Okay, and it gives you the who's who of the spiritual world and the material world. And then the last 5 verses are very instructive of this chapter of the Brahma Samhita, because it explains what is sadhana bhakti, and also going up to Raganuga Bhakti, pure devotion. Okay, so here is an explanation of what happened before the material manifestation. And now we go to 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It explains what happens for the material manifestation. Okay, that's why I gave you those 2 references. This explains what happens before it, and then now in the 3rd chapter, and Agastya read certain verses from this 3rd chapter, 3rd canto, 6th chapter, that explains the creation of the universal form. The universal form is this material form that Krishna assumes temporarily. It includes the whole material creation or manifestation. We're not going to use the word creation anymore because the matter is eternal, but we're going to use the word material manifestation, right? That's a more correct way of referring to it, because it goes through 2 stages, manifest and unmanifest. So, for the creation of the universal form is something created because it's a temporary body, but it's a body of a temporary body that encompasses the whole material manifestation. It's all included in this universal form. So everything is produced from this body, this gigantic body that is temporary. Just like your body is temporary, but it's like a chemical factory. Krishna, can you tell me what your body produces? Is that one of the substances? No, okay. What else besides Come on. What do you do every day in the toilet? Huh? Stool in your, okay, that's 2. What else does your body produce? What? Sweat. Okay, that's 3.
Snot.
That's 4.
Vomit.
That's 5. There's other things that are more nice than that your body produces. It produces wax, right? You have wax in your ears. Okay. How about blood? Your body produces blood. It's a very, very. I mean, even the greatest scientists have not been able to produce blood. It produces plasma. It produces tendons and ligaments and muscles and bones, right? It produces all kinds of chemicals and amino acids and all kinds of organic chemicals, right? It produces cells. It produces, I mean, we can go down a list. It produces hundreds and thousands of things. So now we understand where the universal form comes from. The universal form will produce all these things: rivers, mountains, forests, etc. It all comes from the universal form. So it says, Maitreya Rishi said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of its potencies, such as the Mahatattva. So there is a thing called the pradhana. That's the sum total of the material elements. Or material of matter. But it's in an inert stage. It's not functioning, let's say. And then when Krishna activates the time factor and the modes of material nature and other things, then this inert matter starts to interact and things are produced. Right? So that's why it says, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies. So that's the avyakta stage, where everything is suspended and not interacting, right? The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. So Krishna enters. First, there's Mahavishnu, and I explained these golden eggs are, expanded from the pores of his body, and each egg, and there's unlimited number of them, is a whole universe. And then he expands himself as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu into each universe, and then water comes from him and covers half the universe, and he reclines on Anantashesha in that water, called the Garbhodak ocean. And then this stem of a lotus flower grows, and then there's a lotus flower on top, and then Brahma is produced from the mental, from the mind of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And now, in order to get everything working, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, and he enters into every atom. And now, in the next chapter, I think it's 7 of this, it's now chapter 8, or chapter 9. Let's see, or chapter 10. Chapter 10 is about calculation of time from the atom. It explains that the material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and not formed into a body, is called the atom. So the atom that the Bhagavatam is talking about is different than the atom that Niels Bohr and the scientists are talking about, because the atom that the scientists are talking about can be divided into protons, electrons, etc. But the atom that the Bhagavatam is talking about is indivisible and also not visible. Even the atom that the scientists talk about is not visible, right? But this is even smaller. It always exists as an invisible identity, even after the dissolution of all forms. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but it is misunderstood by the common man. Okay. So now Kshirodakshaya Vishnu enters into each one of these atoms, and now Mahavishnu, in a very subtle way, glances over the pradhana, the sum total of material nature, and jivas come through his glance without, he doesn't touch the material nature at all, but the jivas enter into the material nature by his glance, and then things start moving at this point. The time factor is there, the modes of material nature. Now, each jiva has unfulfilled material desires from their previous life, from the previous creation. So based on those desires, they get a particular body. And there's 8,400,000 different species. And things start moving now. And bodies are formed and so forth. But for them to do that, it says, Krishna enters with Kali into the 23 elements. Why does it say 23 and not 24? The 24th element is the Mahatattva, the sum total of all the elements. And the other 23 are the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, earth, water, fire, air, so there's 5. Then the senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, 5. Then the objects of the senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and so forth, that's 5. And then the 5 working senses, the arms, the legs, the tongue, the genital, and the anus. So now we have 20. And then you have the mind, intelligence, false ego, you have 23. 24th is the Mahatattva, the total of all those, total material energy. Okay. And he enters into this 23 elements with the goddess Kali, or Durga, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. So, where does Brahma come into all this? We'll find out as the chapters go on. But all this is happening right at the beginning of the material manifestation. So Brahma is called the secondary creator. He's not the primary creator. So all these things have to happen first before Brahma takes over. He never takes over. He's only acting under Krishna's order. But he's not the primary creator. He's the secondary creator, because all the elements have to be created, the time factor, the modes of material nature, all these things have to come into play for Brahma to take over and then populate the universe with living entities and all these other things. Okay. So the ingredients of matter are counted as 23. And so I just talked about them. And it says, all are combined together by the influence of time. So the time factor has to be there. And that time factor is representative of Krishna, Kala, and are again dissolved in the course of time. Time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and acts in her own way by the direction of the Lord. Why does it refer to time as feminine? Her own way. Why does it refer to time as a feminine? Because it's not independent. It's acting under Krishna. Yeah. Time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and acts in her own way by the direction of the Lord. This energy is called Kali and is represented by the dark, destructive goddess generally worshipped by persons influenced by the mode of darkness or ignorance in the material existence. So, in the material world, time is dark, and it's a destroyer. Time, I am the destroyer of worlds, Krishna says. Mityu sarva haras chaham. So why is time destructive in the material world? There's time in the spiritual world, but she's not destructive. She's supportive. Yes?
Time affects people in the material world, and in the spiritual world, there isn't really...
Get the microphone. Give the microphone. Okay, that's correct. In the material world, she's destructive, and in the spiritual world?
In the material world, Maya affects people, but in the spiritual world, Maya helps people. So
Yes.
it's destructive in the material world
And
good in the
supportive in the spiritual world.
Supportive.
Yeah, exactly right. So, this is described by a Vedic hymn or mantra, and this process is described as Mula Prakritir Avikirtir Mahadadya Prakriti Vikritaya Sapta Soda Sakas Tu Vikaro Na Prakritir Na Vikriti Purusha. The energy which acts as material nature in a combination of 23 ingredients is not the final source of creation. The Lord enters into the elements and applies his energy called Kali. In all other Vedic scriptures, the same principle is accepted. In Brahma Samhita 535, it is said, Ekop yaso rachayatam jagadanda kotim yas chaktirasti jagadanda chayayalanta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham vajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is the original personality of Godhead. By his partial plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, he enters into material nature and then into each and every universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu into all the elements, including every atom of matter. Such manifestations of cosmic creation are innumerable, both in the universes and in the individual atoms. So there's innumerable expansions of Vishnu, innumerable demigods, innumerable Shivas, innumerable Brahmas, and all of them are necessary for the material manifestation. Similarly, this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:42. Atava bahunaitena kim gyatena tavarjuna vistabhyaham aham krishnam idam krishnam ekam sena stito jagat. O Arjuna, there's no necessity of your knowing about my innumerable energies which act in various ways. I enter into the material creation by my partial plenary expansion, Paramatma or the Supersoul, in all the universes and in all the elements thereof, and thus the work of creation goes on. The wonderful activities of material nature are due to Lord Krishna, and thus he is the final cause or the ultimate cause of all causes. So what we're going to remember from this, and we'll stop with this today and continue tomorrow, that the material nature works because Krishna is present in every atom. Now the scientists don't say that. They don't know why it works. They say, oh, it's because of gravity, you know. But that's not an explanation. I could say, oh, it's because of Krishna Raheja. No, that's not an explanation, you know, and it's not even true, right? So gravity is not making everything work in the material nature. The reason everything works is because of Krishna, who's in every atom of the universe, and therefore is directing all the things. Now, when you go to college and you take physics, you will learn about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Write this down. Heisenberg, Heisenberg. H-E-I-N. Look it up on the internet, make sure I'm not misspelling it. H-E-I-N-S-E-N-B-E-R-G. H-E-I-N-S-E-N-B-E-R-G.
Probably, you know.
How many are you going to say before you say what you want to say?
Like in my school, they say they found out about the Big Bang by studying comets and asteroids. Yeah. Comets. It's weird.
Yeah, and then they'll say we found out about the comets by studying the Big Bang.
Yeah.
That's called a circular argument.
Heisenberg doesn't have an H-E-I-S-E-N-B-E-R-G.
Okay, H-E-I-S-E-N-B-E-R-G. No N. Uncertainty. U-N-C-E-R-T-A-I-N-T-Y. Principle. Do you know how to spell uncertainty, Ria? You know? U-N-C-E-R-U-N-C-E-R-T-A-I-N-T-Y. Uncertainty. So your homework is to look up what is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
What?
Your homework is to find out what is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And give me an opinion. Is it true or untrue?
He was awarded Nobel Prize from that.
I know. We're going to take it away from him. Is it true or untrue? Well, usually, in the relative world that we live in, things are true in a limited, let's say, context. But in a bigger context, they're not true. So what is the bigger context in which Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is not true? And what is the limited context in which Heisenberg's uncertainty principle seems to be true? Okay, you got that? This is your homework, right? Because we're going to relate this tomorrow to the material manifestation story. Now you see, this is much more interesting than Big Bang. Big Bang is dumb, right? It's just dumb. Not only does it make sense, it's just dumb, right? This makes sense. Right? Okay, Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada ki jai. So if somebody asks you, what homework did Harivilas give you? We have to find out what is the Heisenberg uncertainty problem. What? That's not in the Bhagavatam. That's nonsense. Why is he teaching you that? You know?
That's good, very nice. I've been wanting to do this for very long time. I was having the faculty subjects in the morning, Saturday. I started this so that I can get ready and then come to computer. Yeah, right, yeah.
Together.
Yeah, the learning together is so important and makes so much difference. Like they don't feel like they are alone or hearing or something like that. Listen.
Those kids that do better, that's school, more parents help. Support them, push them. They're the ones that do the best. It's not the kids that do the tutoring. Tutoring helps a little bit, but it's not. It's the kids that are supported 100% by the education aspect. They're the kids that do the best. That is
a few days. Fine. Over.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that is.
How is your health?
Yeah. I think so. I'm feeling better than I felt.
I was missing you in the weekends.
Oh yeah.
Come for the kirtan.
Yeah.
I thought you were out of station somewhere.
No. Last Sunday I was here. In fact, I
Lost track of time.
I would say in the temple I chanted Bhagavad from 6 o'clock to 9.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I didn't come on Saturday.
And we had a nice program in the farm. 12 people. So it was a day of a lot of chanting.
You had that on Sunday.
Yeah.
You used to have it on Saturday, right?
On the farm?
Yeah.
No, Sunday. And that last Sunday was special because up here it was a big family. So it was a big festival.
I am missing out.
Yes, yeah.
His shoe sizes so it goes so I'm thinking that might be
Yes.
So they did him welcome in, he was a couple more characters. So he has to take care of these guys. Take care of you. Yeah, you got some.
Krishna? I think this is the same thing.
Yeah, so, yeah, I saw them also.
Yeah, right, but it was reservoir. REI.
That's where I got this.
Yeah. And they're really good.
Yeah.
They hold up.
Looking forward to this chanting. You see.